Namaste. Welcome to the Sundays with Sattva program. We conduct these programs every other Sunday to answer questions and take up some topics for discussion which people are interested in. We run a program called Sattva, which is sharing our experience of diet purification to mind purification to self realization. We run a 3-month program where we share our experience with participants about diet purification, how it can help them reach their goal of health, wellness, peace of mind, and prepare them for the higher goal, that is, realizing who they are, realizing who we all are, because that's the main goal of our life. You see, today's topic is spirituality. What is spirituality? Why should we consider spirituality? And how do we do it? All right. So let's start from the very beginning. When we are born or when a child is born, let's just start from there because this is our experience, isn't it? We think that we started this journey on this planet as a baby when we came out of our mother's womb. All right. So at that time, what happens is we get a very vivid and remarkable experience of the world. Our sense organs become active the moment we come out of our mother's womb, and we start seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, and hearing. So all five senses, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, they get activated as soon as the baby comes out of the mother's womb. All right. That experience is so remarkable and so vivid that we think of that experience as real. All right. When we think of this world as real, and we think that by touching, tasting, smelling, hearing, and seeing things, we will be happy or we get a sense of joy. Okay. When we are in this kind of experience and when we are in this kind of mindset, that is called being materialistic, because our joy, our happiness depends upon material. Okay. So when material in Sanskrit, the thing is called Vishay. So when the object that comes in contact with our sense organ, when both of them join together, an experience happens, and that experience we term as sukha or happiness. Okay. So this kind of happiness is pursued by every organism the day that organism is born. Okay. This is called materialism. Okay. Then what happens is we keep pursuing that experience, and that experience makes us happy from many, many different things. So initially, of course, the first thing that gets activated is our tongue. So the baby, as it comes out of the mother's body, knows that the tongue is for a certain purpose. So one doesn't have to teach the baby that it should start sucking. So the baby will start sucking the mother's milk. No training required. Okay. It is an inborn instinct. What happens is our taste buds, our sense of taste, our rasana, the sense of rasa gets activated in the very beginning. Okay. This rasana, this sense of taste remains with us throughout our life. And in fact, what happens is we get so enchanted, enamored, and entangled in the sense of taste that we want to enjoy that sense or enjoy that happiness time after time after time after time after time. Okay. So this sense of taste or our rasana takes a hold on us, takes a grip on us. Okay. So once this sense of taste takes hold of our mind, then what we do is we try to enjoy different kinds of tastes. All right. Again, we are still at the material level because the object of taste, say a rasagulla or a mango or a banana, whatever you like, or even a cup of tea, right? So, what we think or what our impression becomes is when I have a cup of tea, or when I eat a rasagulla, or when I eat a mango, or when I eat a banana, then I'm happy. The problem with this approach is it will make us happy when it is happening under certain conditions. So, for example, the food or the banana or the mango will make me happy when number one, I'm hungry, number two, I'm healthy, and number three, the mango is good. All right. So, all three things have to happen. If the mango is not good, even though I'm hungry and I'm healthy, the mango will not create that kind of experience. If the mango is great, but I'm not healthy, then also the experience will not be generated, right? So that experience of joy or happiness generated because of a certain number of conditions cannot be, long lasting. And what do we want? We want that our sense of joy, our sense of happiness should be everlasting. That is the pursuit of every organism, not just human beings. We all want to be in a state of happiness, joy, equilibrium at all times. Okay. Now, we misunderstand that our happiness, our joy is in that thing. Okay. But that is not true. Because, for example, I may like mango, but there are some people here who may not like mango. So if they have mango, then they don't get the same experience as I do when I eat the mango. So happiness or joy is not in the mango. If it were, then the mango should have given the same experience to everybody. That doesn't happen. Therefore, in materialistic attitude and in materialistic pursuits, happiness doesn't last. It is not equal. It's not equal for everybody. And in fact, the same thing that can give us joy will give us misery or grief if we continue to do it or under certain other conditions, right? So, happiness or joy is not dependent upon material things. What actually happens is when that sense object and the sense organ come together, there is a union of those two, there is a yoga of those two. In that yoga, in that union, happiness is manifested. That happiness, that joy is actually within us. Okay. We misunderstand that joy or that happiness is dependent upon that thing. That's our misunderstanding. All right. As long as we enjoy materialistic pleasures, as long as we enjoy the union of the sense objects and the sense organs, we can be termed as living a materialistic life. In Sanskrit, it is called Adhibhautik. All right. So this is the first thing we do when we are born, or we live our life for a long time under this kind of pursuit and under this kind of sense of happiness. That is the purely materialistic way of life. Okay. Now, when we go a bit further, we realize that this happiness or this joy based on material things doesn't last too long. Okay. Then we start pursuing things that give us mental happiness. Mental happiness lasts a bit longer. Okay. So this happiness comes to us when we pursue either money or a position of power or fame. Because name, fame, fortune, power can last our entire lifetime. Okay. So while the material things gave us a high for a short duration, this second thing, which is a mental high, that high can last for a longer duration. Okay. In Sanskrit, the classic terms for these two are number one is kama. Kama means joy or happiness that is derived from the union of the sense object and the sense organ. That is Kama. Don't think of Kama Shastra or Kama Sutra. Kama simply means the union of any sense object with the sense organ. All right. But that is very short lasting, we have learned. So now we are pursuing something that lasts longer. That thing is called Artha. All right. So at that time, our focus is more on the experience itself rather than the objects of experience. Okay, so initially our pursuit was towards the object of experience or objects of experience. That was the materialistic life. That was Adi Bhautik. Now we are looking at the experience itself and trying to extend that experience. When we are focusing on the experience, that pursuit is called Adi Daivik. Okay, it is more in our mind. Okay, so we have done the Adi Bhautik, the materialistic pursuit. Then we do Adi Daivik pursuit, the experience kind of pursuit. But see, once we realize, even though we may pursue these things, but what after I die? Then what? Then what do I do? Then I go and donate a huge amount of fortune to whatever fortune I may have earned by whatever means. I try to donate some of that fortune to some causes. And then I say, okay, I'm giving you so much donation, but this building or this hospital or this institution should have my name on it. And there should be a big statue of my own. Okay. So what I'm thinking is, even when I'm gone, then people will remember my name. So this whole pursuit of Artha, we do all our life and we think or we imagine will last beyond our death. That is the pursuit of Artha. Okay, this high can last a whole lifetime. Okay. But then thereafter, once we realize that even this has that limit. So the pursuit of Artha also has a limit. The limit is when this body dies, then what? Then our family, our followers, our friends may remember us and may say that, this was such a great man. There are so many great men whose statues we see everywhere. And on those statues, birds will go and do whatever they want to do, right? So the person whose statue happens to be in the crossroad, that person is gone, right? So to that person, that statue means nothing, isn't it? Then once we understand that there is a limitation for both Kama and Artha, then we start wondering and start questioning, who is this one who is experiencing all this? So we looked at the objects of experience, then we looked at the experience itself, Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivik. Then the third pursuit is to try to figure out who is having that experience. When that question comes to our mind and when we pursue that, that is when we come into what is called as Adhyatmik. Adhyatmik is the correct word for spirituality. Okay, so initially we were concerned about material and we were trying to gain our happiness or joy through material. That was the materialistic pursuit. The next pursuit was related to our mind. Okay, Kama and Artha. And then the third pursuit is now we are looking at our own spirit. Who is the experience? Who is the experiencer? That's what we are trying to figure out now. When that quest starts, that's when spirituality starts. Because we have understood that pursuing material pleasures has a limit. We have also understood that pursuing pleasures of the mind also has a limit. All right. Second experience we have is once we are pursuing these things, either in the world or even our experience itself. All right. Merely our own effort is not sufficient. Many different things have to come together in order for any desired result to actually happen. So I may have the desire to, do well in my job or do earn a lot of money, right? So if I have money on my own, if I have some capital, then I may start a business and I may grow that capital and I may build a business. I may earn a lot of profit and I may pursue acquisition of money or property or whatever, right? If I don't have capital to start with, then I may have to work for somebody else for a salary or whatever. And then I build my capital, I build my net worth, and then I invest that money wisely somewhere else and try to build on that, isn't it? So these things I can pursue. But in addition to what I do, a lot of other things have to align properly. Only then the desired result happens. So even though I may be capable, I may be very smart, I may be educated, I may have experience, but some employer has to be willing to employ me. Only then can I get a salary, isn't it? So whether the employer will employ me or not is not in my hands, isn't it? So these things over which we don't have any control. So okay, I'm trying to pursue things, I'm doing my best, but there are many other things that come together and that help me achieve my goal. So that everything that's coming together to help me over time, I start thinking of it as God. So God is helping me in making sure that I get all my goals. Okay. So this invisible power that seems to be helping me, I term that power as God. I term that power as God as omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. All right. These are all our understandings. Okay. These are all things within our understanding. All right. So all these things we experience firsthand. You see, when we talk about spirituality, spirituality doesn't need to become very complicated or out of the box. I'm just speaking to you regarding our own experience, our own day-to-day experience. And once again, as I say in all of my lectures, whatever I'm telling you is essentially my own experience, is essentially my own story. All right. I don't expect you will agree with everything I say because you may have a different perspective on what I'm saying. All right. So it's okay. It's completely okay for you to disagree with me. I completely understand. All right. So from whatever I tell you, you can take whatever suits you, whatever makes sense to you, whatever doesn't suit you, by all means question. Okay. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anybody. You have to trust only your own experience. Okay. If your own experience isn't giving you the correct answer, or if you seem to be confused, then you can ask somebody who has had that experience, who understands the truth, who has experienced the truth, and who can teach me how to go to that truth. Okay. If we do that, then we will be on the spiritual path. Spirituality is not anything complicated. Spirituality is basically learning from our own experiences and making sure that we are moving in the right direction. What is the right direction? The right direction is that I'm always joyful, I'm infinitely joyful, and I know what I want to know. All right. The good news is this is our essential nature. The good news is that we are infinite, we are always present, we are always joyful, and knowledge is ever present. Okay. So our own essential nature is existence, awareness, and bliss. In Sanskrit, it is termed as Sat, existence, Chit, awareness, and Ananda, bliss. And we will add one more term to it, Ananta, it's infinite. Okay. So this is what our essential nature is. Unfortunately, we don't know it because we are pursuing the wrong things. See, we are looking for joy outside of us. We are looking for joy in things. We are looking for joy in people. We are looking for joy in places. So our joy, we think mistakenly, is dependent upon Desha, Kala, Vastu, Vyakti, Paristhiti. Five things. Desha means place. Kala means time. Vastu means things. Vyakti means people. And Paristhiti means situation. Joy is not in all of these, because the same person may make somebody happy and the same person may make somebody else unhappy. The same situation may make somebody happy and the same situation may make somebody else unhappy. So for example, our corona situation, the corona situation, if I am sick because of COVID, or if a family member is sick because of COVID, the situation will be sad for me, right? But if I'm making masks, or if I'm making a vaccine, and if I'm selling that vaccine all over the world and I'm making millions of rupees or dollars, then the same situation is joyful for me, isn't it? I will take all kinds of precautions I need to take and make sure that my business grows, because this is an opportunity. So the situation remains the same. How I look at the situation makes that situation either sad, miserable, or an opportunity, isn't it? So once we realize this, that's when we start moving in the direction of spirituality. So I've given you this whole overview of what spirituality is. Why do we do this? We do this because we want to be happy at all times. Every organism, every living entity always wants to be happy. Happy means in a state of equilibrium, in a state of peace. Okay. So that's the pursuit of every living entity, not just human beings. Animals, plants, even individual microorganisms are always wanting to live in that state of equilibrium. That is the law of nature. That is fundamental. Okay. That is why we want to pursue that. Once we understand that happiness or this peace or balance is not in the material things and not even in the experience itself, it is beyond that. Okay. That's when we start moving in that direction. So why spirituality? Because we want to be peaceful, we want to be joyful, we want to be infinitely happy. That is why spirituality, because spirituality will give you that. Your adhyatmic pursuit will actually make you infinitely happy right here, right now. It's not going to be in some point in future. No, you can be joyful, you can be happy, you can be infinite right here, right now, because you already are. You don't have to become that. Okay. We have unfortunately mistakenly assumed ourselves to be not that. That is our problem. Okay. So all this spiritual pursuit does is, helps us realize who we truly are. So this whole pursuit is for realizing who we truly are. Once we realize who we truly are, then joy is always there. Joy has always been there. So it's like the sun shining in the sky. Sometimes there will be clouds, and we will say that the sun has been covered by clouds. That's not the correct way. The sun is always there. Our vision has been covered by, or our eyes have been covered by the clouds. That's why we cannot see the sun. When our eyes, when our mind is covered by all the objects of desire, then we don't see happiness that's within us, because we are stuck with the objects of desire. Okay, we are stuck in material nature. That's what happens. So why spirituality? We want to be happy at all times, infinitely happy. Now how do we do it? How do we do it? You have to do some homework, no? Otherwise how will it happen? So if you look at the sadhana, if you look at the pursuit, or what do we need to do, we don't have to go too far. Okay, lots of manuals have been written. The best manual, which is very popular all over the world, even we try to follow it, is the Yoga Sutra. written down by Patanjali Muni. In Yoga Sutra, what does he say? Number one is yama. Yama means the things that we should not do, or the abstinences. And second is niyama, or the observances, the things we should do. All right. What are these yama and niyama? Yama is number one, ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. We should not hurt anybody by our tongue, our speech, hmm, our body, or even in our thoughts. Kaya, vacha, mana. All three things we should not use to hurt anybody. That is ahimsa. Then satya, not lying at all. Be truthful at all times. Would we not want other people to be truthful to us at all times? Then does that not mean even I should be truthful to all of you? Ahimsa, satya. Third thing is asteya. Asteya means we should not collect anything that we haven't earned by rightful means. If I don't work hard for something, we should not really collect anything, or we should not get anything. That is called asteya, means not to steal. So if we take something without working for it, then that is called stealing, isn't it? None of us wants to be a thief. We don't want other people to steal something from us, isn't it? So therefore we should do the same thing. Asteya. Then the fourth thing is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is the most misunderstood word in yoga practice. See, most of the people think of brahmacharya as celibacy. That is not the meaning of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya really means walking towards Brahman. Brahma really means, the word Brahma means to expand, or the one that's always ever expanding, or the one that is infinite, the one that is all encompassing, the large one. That is what Brahma means. And Charya means walking towards that. See, if we have a really large goal or a tall goal, then all the smaller goals, all the dwarf goals will simply get dropped, isn't it? That is called brahmacharya. So when we are pursuing our spiritual goals, when we are trying to figure out who we are, in that pursuit, we will need to curtail a lot of our lower goals. That is called brahmacharya. That is all. Okay. And the fifth thing is aparigraha. Aparigraha means not collecting things more than necessary. Have you seen any animal collect things more than necessary? No, never. If we collect things more than necessary, then that is a crime against nature. I mean, we should all have things that we use and that are useful for us for conducting our life and contributing to the society. We will call them tools. That's fine. So I have this headset I'm using because this headset is useful for me to speak to you. You can hear my voice clearly. So this is a tool. So for that reason, I have it. Okay. But if I'm not using it, if I simply collect things that I don't use just because I want to collect things, that is called parigraha. There is no reason for us to have parigraha at all. So aparigraha. Aparigraha means not collecting things. So these are the five abstinences. These will make sure that I'm not a problem for the world and the world is not a problem for me. That is yama. Then the second thing is niyama. Niyama means observances. So now we've been told what not to do. Then now we have to learn what to do, isn't it? Nished and vidhi. So vidhi, nished are both important in our life. So what to do? Number one is shaucha. Shaucha means cleanliness. Cleanliness is not just taking a nice shower every morning. You must do that. You may do that twice or thrice, as many number of times as you need to or want to. All right. But shaucha also means internal cleanliness, not just the cleanliness of the body, but also of the mind. All right. So whatever bad things come into our system because of our wrong habits or even just being in the world, you cannot really escape pollution in today's world, isn't it? So just if you go take a walk on the street, you may be completely covered with dust. So come home and take a shower. It's that simple. So cleaning up whatever junk we might have collected because of simply living, okay, that is called shaucha. Next is santosha. Santosha means contentment. Whatever you got, be happy with it. If you keep pursuing things all the time, and if you keep comparing yourself with your neighbor, and because they have done this, I should also do this, that pursuit is unending. Unending. So if we continue with that pursuit, we will not be following Santosha at all. All right. Whatever we need, we must acquire. About that, there is no doubt. Okay, we should work hard to have a good life and all that, no problem. But at the end of it, after our efforts, whatever we get, we should be satisfied with it. We should always be satisfied with the things we have. In fact, the three things we should always be satisfied with: number one, the food on our plate, never criticize; number two, the money in the bank; and number three, our partner, our spouse. These three things we should always be very happy about, very content with, and never look beyond that, ever. The three things we should never be content with, and we should pursue without any inhibitions. Number one is dana. Dana means to give. Okay. Then the second thing is japa and tapa. Japa and tapa means spiritual practices. And the third is swadhyaya, means the study of self. In these three things, we should never really be content. We should pursue these things infinitely, indefinitely, all the time. Okay. So Shaucha Santosha, then Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya, I just told you, Swadhyaya is the study of the self. Swa, self. Adhyaya means study. Study of the self. Who am I? That's the pursuit we are doing even right now, isn't it? Shaucha Santosha Swadhyaya. Then Tapa. Tapa means doing this thing with consistency. Okay. Tapa essentially means to heat. Okay. So if you pursue something with dedication, with consistency, with single pointedness, even when the situation may not be conducive for that, that is called tapa. Okay. And then finally, Ishwar Pranidhan. Ishwar Pranidhan is a bit tricky to understand. See, the traditional meaning of that word would be Ishvara means God, Pranidhana means surrender. So surrender to God's will. That's fine. See, for those who believe in God and who think that there is a God who is controlling this entire universe, for them, this will be an easy way to explain. For those who don't believe in God, who don't think that there is a God, it doesn't really matter. Let's say alignment with natural law or alignment with the laws of nature. Is that good enough? That is called Ishwar Pranidhan. Nature works according to certain laws. Gravity works, thermodynamics works, mass transfer works, heat transfer works. You know, if we pour water on top of the mountain, it will go to the sea. That is natural law. Even in our life, there are many natural laws on of how to maintain this body. Okay. When we understand these laws, that is called Ishvara Pranidhan. And observing, obeying, and always living according to those laws. That is called Ishvara Pranidhan. So we do yama, niyama, then asana. Okay, asana simply means to sit comfortably. So for the last 33 minutes, thanks to our yoga guru, Rashmi, I've been sitting in half Padmasan or Siddhasan on my chair without any problem. All right. So these things happen. That is called, that is all asana means. Asana means for doing whatever you want to do, you should be able to sit comfortably without fidgeting and all that and having to get up because my feet are aching. That is not helpful at all. So asana practice is mainly to maintain your body in a state of comfort to do whatever you need to do at any given time. That is what asana means. So asana practice is basically to make our body flexible, making our body fit, and making our body capable of doing whatever we want to make our body do. That is what asana means. Unfortunately, yoga all over the world has been misunderstood as all these impossible asanas. Yoga does not mean twisting of the body. Yoga means straightening of the mind. That's what yoga means. Okay. So don't get stuck in these yogasanas. If you're able to do, great. If you're not able to do, it's okay. You push your body, you try to extend your stretches to the extent you can every day. Make sure you go, you make progress, and then your body will become more and more and more and more flexible. Okay. Once that body becomes more flexible, then you can use it the way you want to use it. That's the use of asanas. Yogasana. Then fourth is pranayam. Pranayam means actually the balancing of the energies within the body. Prana is the energies in the body that hold this body together, the life energies. Okay. Balance of those life energies is called pranayama. It's not simply breathing. I mean, there are all kinds of breathing exercises you will learn in the class. Okay. So sometimes when you keep breathing the way we get taught in the class, I feel that okay, my entire thing is going to get burned away or something. No, that doesn't always happen. In fact, our yoga instructor keeps telling us that you should do only to the extent you can. Don't push where you are uncomfortable. Okay. So do to the extent you can. In fact, I can tell you that from my personal experience. See, pranayam is something you do. And whenever you do something, whenever there is a doer behind whatever you do, there is tiredness. Okay. But do you get tired of breathing? You have been breathing from day one. Since the day you came out of your mother's womb, you have been breathing. Are you tired of breathing? No. Because breathing is done by nature. There is no doer behind the nature, behind breathing. When there is no doer, when there is no sense of doership, then there is no effort. That is called Sthira Sukham Asanam, what Patanjali says. Okay. If you do the yama, niyama, and asana right, then you don't have to do pranayam. Pranayam will happen 24/7. That's what will happen. Okay. Fourth is pranayam, which is the balancing of the life's energies. Fifth is pratyahara. Pratyahara is anti-ahara. Ahara means to consume, and pratyahara means not to consume. It doesn't mean that you fast forever. If you can, great, you can do that. All it means is do not consume anything more than necessary. That's all. So until there is a need to consume something, don't start consuming it. The first rule of life, the first rule is do not eat until you are hungry. If we can follow this just one rule, then pratyahar becomes easier. Okay. So the fifth step is pratyahar. Then after that, the three steps, the three following steps are all internal. They are to be experienced. All right. So the sixth step is dharana. Dharana is basically direction. See, until now, our entire life was outward bound, outward looking. So turn that around and make it inward. See, why was it outward? Because we were under the impression, we were under the mistaken notion that all happiness is outside. Happiness is in the world. So I want to consume the world. I want to enjoy the world. And that enjoyment is happiness, is what I had thought. But once I realized that no, that joy is not outside in the world, but that is within me. So when that turning around happens, that is the dharana. So my dharana has become looking at myself rather than at the world. Next step is dhyana, is meditation. Dhyana means focusing on one thing. Okay. So yoga practice will teach us the techniques or make sure that our mind is single pointed. That's what yoga does for us. Okay, then you can concentrate on anything. See, even if you want to concentrate on some worldly desire or object, won't you have to focus? So if I am a scientist and if I want to find the principle behind something, I will have to think about it. I will have to focus on it. Einstein understood the theory of relativity or Newton understood the law of gravity. Why? Because they were focused on it. So that's how that focus meditation is dhyana. And then the last step is samadhi. Samadhi means our life becomes so sahaja, so at ease that In whatever we do, we remain 100%, we do our 100%, we focus on it 100%, we give our 100%, and we don't expect anything in return. So whatever we do becomes an expression of our joy rather than we trying to do something to get joy out of it. So spirituality is not to find joy outside of us, but to express the inner joy doing whatever we do. So spirituality will manifest itself in infinite work without getting tired, infinite love without any expectation in return, and infinite bliss. It will be like a flower. So the flower does not give fragrance. The flower has fragrance. So anybody who comes in contact with the flower will get the fragrance. The flower will have to do nothing to do that, to make that happen. That is what will happen when we pursue the path of spirituality. So I have made enough comments. Usually I don't speak this long as a monologue, but I thank you all for listening to me so patiently. Now I'm going to try to get participants to ask questions. So anybody who wants to ask a question, they may raise their hand or they may unmute themselves and they may ask a question, and then we can discuss that. So I
So, sir, I
appreciate
think
your patience.
Dr.
Yes,
Goyal has joined, so we could just check if he has any comments or he wants to add something.
Dr. Kamal Kant Goyal, my elder brother, who is always here and who makes comments after I speak. If you have any comments about spirituality, about, I don't know when you joined, so I don't know how much you have heard, but if you have any comments to make on spirituality, that would be wonderful.
No, Vikramji, I heard the whole session. I joined 2-3 minutes late, but I heard the whole session. It was so enriching, energizing, rejuvenating as usual, and too self-explanatory. I will only add one comment, and the comment is that there are two things: मानना और जानना. तो इनिशियली इवोल्यूशन में क्या होता है, हम मानते ही नहीं है. हम ये नहीं मानते कि हम बॉडी नहीं है. यहां से शुरू होता है. फिर अच्छे गुरु मिलते हैं, हम उनको सुनते हैं, स्क्रिप्चर्स पढ़ते हैं, तो हम ये मानने लगते हैं कि हाँ, हम बॉडी नहीं है, हम कुछ और हैं. हम दो स्पिरिट एलिमेंट है, तत्व है, आत्मा है, पर हम मानते हैं सिर्फ. हमें अनुभव नहीं होता, हम जानते नहीं है. जानना अनुभव से आता है. और अनुभव कैसे आएगा? जो आपने कहा ना, स्पिरिचुअल परसूट, डेली साधना. साधना करनी पड़ती है, गुरुओं का सानिध्य रखना पड़ता है, स्क्रिप्चर्स को पढ़ना पड़ता है, और सबसे बड़ी चीज क्या, इंट्रोस्पेक्शन करना पड़ता है. लगातार कंटेम्पलेशन, अंतर निरीक्षण, अंतर परीक्षण, आत्मविश्लेषण, अंतर संवर्धन, आत्म संवर्धन, ये सब करना पड़ता है. तभी जाके हम शायद जान पाए. और ये यात्रा लंबी होती है. कई बार ये एक जन्म में समाप्त हो सकती है, कई बार एक जन्म में नहीं जान सकते कि आप शरीर नहीं है, मन नहीं है, बुद्धि नहीं है, अहंकार नहीं है, आप आत्मा है, आप चेतन तत्व हैं, जो सत चित और आनंद है, जो कभी परिवर्तित न होता, तीनों कालों में एक जैसा है. तो this is my only comment I have to offer, but the rest, everything was so clear, Vikramji.
Thank you, Kamal Kanji. It's always good to have your comments, and I'm happy that you endorse what I have said. That's always very pleasing. Anybody else has any questions and comments?
There's one question that I wanted to ask. So many times people say that they are not religious, but they are spiritual. So how is being religious different than being spiritual?
All right. So, what is the difference between religion and spirituality? See, religion is typically understood as a set of beliefs. Okay. Religion is basically a set of beliefs and practices that people will follow. So, somebody has told us that you should believe certain things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 or whatever, and then you should do these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10 or 100, whatever. So these beliefs and practices are typically a religion. And religion is based on the principle that the more people we can get into our fold, then it is better for us. It's not like that. There is no reason for us to get stuck with religion. Religion is a good thing. It's not that religion is not a good thing. Religion is helpful. Okay, so not everybody is willing to put in the hard work to understand these principles we are contemplating, and it might be easier for them to have just a recipe. Okay, so to have a recipe and to live life according to, but then that religion should not be opposed to other religions. See, when religion is opposed to other religions, then there is a problem. There is a problem of conflict, isn't it? So if I'm pursuing my religion at my home and I don't expect other people to pursue the same thing, and I don't fight with them because you should also pursue the same thing, to that extent, religion is fine. Okay? Because religion gives me a nice basis to live my life. In fact, most of the religions, when they talk to their followers about how to live in this world, most of them tell you the same thing, isn't it? So as long as we adhere to those practices and we live in harmony with other religions, it's okay. But unfortunately, religion has been misused by people to try to convert other people into their belief systems and all that. So that is not necessary because, see, I'll give you a very practical example. So if I belong to a certain religion, okay, and then you belong to a certain different religion, all right, then you come to me and you tell me that, see, my religion is so good, you should do this, you should start living accordingly, you should start believing in my religion, and you should do this, okay, and I tell you, yes, I will do that, okay. Externally, my life may appear to you as if I belong to your religion, okay, but internally, whether within me I believe that or not, how do you know, or how can you know? There is no way for you to know, isn't it? So therefore, this entire thing is completely futile. I think Dr. Kamal Kant wanted to say something regarding this.
मैं एक छोटा सा आई लाइक टू ऐड अ स्मॉल कमेंट.
Please.
देखिए, अगर हिंदी में हम ट्रांसलेट करें तो रिलीजन माने धर्म और स्पिरिचुअलिटी माने आध्यात्म. तो धर्म एक सेंस ऑफ डुअलिटी देता है. मैं हिंदू, तू मुसलमान, तू क्रिश्चियन, तू ईसाई. बट कोई भी आध्यात्मिक हो सकता है, उसमें धर्म आड़े नहीं आता. सबसे पहला पॉइंट तो मैं ये ऐड करना चाहूंगा. दूसरा क्या है, दूसरा मैं एक और एग्जांपल देके समझाता हूं धर्म और स्पिरिचुअलिटी, रिलीजन और स्पिरिचुअलिटी में क्या फर्क है. रिलीजन इज, धर्म क्या है, मेरी साड़ी तेरी साड़ी से सफेद, और इसीलिए सारा झगड़ा. और आध्यात्म क्या है, कोई साड़ी नहीं है भाई, कोई शक्ल नहीं है, कोई सूरत नहीं है, कोई उम्र नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है, सब बराबर है. मुझ में राम, तुझ में राम, सब में राम समाया, और सबसे कर ले प्यार, जगत में कोई नहीं है पराया. दिस इज स्पिरिचुअलिटी. एंड
Fantastic.
या एंड यू नो, तो मतलब मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि बड़ा बहुत ही एकदम अलग है ये सब. धर्म और आध्यात्म अलग. एनीबडी कैन बी स्पिरिचुअल. You need not to pursue a particular religion to be spiritual. So it is not a sect of rules. It is not a set of rules. And this is called Sanatan Dharma. No, this is universal. है, आप अब आग आग जलाएगी, ये उसका धर्म है. पानी गीला करेगा, तो इस ये धर्म ये है. धर्म क्या है, ड्यूटी. धर्म क्या है, प्रकृति, स्वभाव. ये धर्म नहीं है मैं हिंदू तू मुसलमान. Thank you, Dr. Vikram.
Thank you, Kamal Kanji, for explaining it so nicely. So, religion has been misused by people, unfortunately, and spirituality is something that joins all of us. that brings us all together. Okay, so as Dr. Kamal Khan just said, spirituality is not any religion. Anybody in any religion and in every religion can be spiritual and should ideally be spiritual. In fact, our religion should become our spirituality only for ourselves, within our house. All right. And we can pursue our religion within our house without imposing that on anybody else. I have been told by my Christian friends, we didn't know you were not a Christian because we think you are like a Christian. My Muslim friends have told me, Vikram, we didn't know that you were not a Muslim. We thought that you were a Muslim, right? So what happens is when we are adhered to our dharma and our spirituality, dharma means something that holds us together. Okay? Swadharma means my pursuit of knowing who I am. That's what I call swadharma. So if I am pursuing that, if I am engaged in that, then my external behavior will be, see, one time I was invited by an all religion sort of meet to talk about Hinduism in 5 minutes. So I gave a speech for about 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And the punchline was, Hinduism tells me that in my behavior with the world, in my behavior with other people, I will live according to the golden rule. I should do unto others what I would like others do unto me, right? So I will behave with other people the way I want other people to behave with me. That is the golden rule. That is how my external life will be. And internally, my pursuit will be to know who I am. That is what Hinduism teaches me. And that is what Hinduism is all about. Hinduism or Hindu religion is a name that has been given by people who adhere to other religions. Okay. As far as we are concerned, it's Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma really means the eternal way of life. That is what it really means. And that eternal way of life based on natural law, based on how this whole thing works. Okay. So to understand all this, the way I understood all this is, of course, by reading books and listening to masters, but also adhering to a lot of self discipline in my own life. Okay. So, the first discipline I try to follow is number one, I try not to eat when I'm not hungry. At least once in a day, one should really feel hungry, very hungry. Okay. Which means that whatever you have eaten the previous 24 hours has been completely digested. You must, you must do that every day. All right. So if you do that, then what you need to do beyond that, the other kinds of laws and rules and self-discipline that you should be following, that becomes clear in our own heart. Okay. So if we do that, then we will try to regulate our life. We will live our life according to self-discipline and enjoy life within as well as be useful to the society. That's what will happen if we pursue spirituality. There was one other question by Dr. Yash Velankar regarding whether brahmacharya is a nished or what is the nished in brahmacharya. See, the nished in brahmacharya is not explicit. The nished in brahmacharya is implicit. So when I'm trying to pursue something which is all encompassing, when I'm trying to pursue a higher goal, then the lower goals get dropped off automatically. I'm not necessarily doing the nishad of those lower goals. Those lower goals are no longer of any interest to me. All right. So nishad happens naturally. That is what I understand the nishad in brahmacharya. All right. So I hope this is clear to you. Brahmacharya means control over our senses also. So utilizing our senses only for the purpose for which those were designed by nature. To that extent, if we use our senses, then we are always following brahmacharya, isn't it? So the shlok in Gita I am always reminded of for this brahmacharya is yada samharate chayam kurmonganiva sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya prajna pratisthita. Right? So just as the tortoise extends its 6 limbs when it needs to, and when it sees any danger, it withdraws those limbs. In the same manner, the one who is established in wisdom will utilize his or her sense organs only when they are necessary, and at other times, those sense organs will be withdrawn. That is called brahmacharya. So I hope this answer is okay with you. Any other questions anybody has? Pooja, are there any questions in the chat? I'm not looking at the chat. If you can just tell me what the questions are, then I can try to take those in the next 5 minutes. We have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I do not see any more questions, sir. We can have people raise their hands and ask their questions if there are any.
So Samir has raised his hand. So why don't we try to unmute Samir? Samir, great. You always have the last question, which is always great. So go ahead, please.
Good evening, Dada. I have a question.
Yes.
When Arjuna went to Krishna with his predicament that थांब जरा. When Arjuna went to Krishna with his predicament that should I fight for my father's rights, that is the throne of Hastinapur. So at that time, why didn't Krishna tell Arjuna that this is all mithya, maya, this is the world is not real? He should have told Arjuna that just sit at home and do nothing and be happy with whatever you have. Why did he tell Arjuna to go and fight and pick up his weapons? And similarly, when you have done your PhD in America and you have worked all over the world in big multinational companies, at times when you come across say instances where there is a mismatch in records or there is corruption, do you tell your boss that oh, this is maya mithya, don't look at it, let it happen, the world is not real? Or do you tell the boss explicitly to catch this corrupt guy and don't leave him, the company should not suffer? Your answer. Thank you.
Great. So that's a wonderful question. Thank you, Samir, for asking this question. These kinds of questions will come in everybody's life. And I'm happy to tell you that when such a question came in my life, I have done the right thing. There is no reason to point fingers at anybody, but when such instances come in our own life, we need to follow what the dharma is, what the right thing is, what the correct thing to do is, what the shreyas is. Why did Krishna tell Arjuna to fight? Because Arjuna was not ready for monastic life. See, Arjuna said that instead of killing my grandfather's brother, granduncle Bhishma, and instead of killing my teacher Drona, I should go to the jungle, go to the Himalayas, become a monk, and run my life on bhiksha. Krishna said, nothing doing, because you're not ready for it. All right. So this vairagya or this detachment from worldly activities doesn't just come just like that. If we are in this world, and even when we understand this world is mithya, we still need to act in the world the way that is Shreyas. All right. So you will see a lot of Jivan Muktas, the people who are self-realized, they will still keep working. The best example is Raja Janak. Janaka was a king. He was a self-realized man, but he still ran the kingdom. Another example is Bharata. Bharata was completely renounced. He did not really want the kingdom. But when his brother Ram told him that go rule the kingdom on my behalf, he did. Even Shivaji Maharaj was renounced. All right. Shivaji Maharaj said to Ramdas Swami, his spiritual guru, Swamiji, this is your kingdom. I give it to you. Ramdas said, I don't need the kingdom. I am a Swami or I am a sannyasi. I don't need the kingdom. You have it. No. He says, no, you keep it. So when Shivaji insisted like this, then Ramdas Swami said, okay, I accept it. Now this kingdom is mine. All right. Now, as the owner of this kingdom, I order you to run it. That's how Ramdas did it. So this is how it is. It's up to us. When we ask the question to our Guru, the Guru does not answer the question. The Guru answers us. Okay. So it was appropriate for Arjuna to fight the war at his stage in his life. That's why it was necessary. And he did. Eventually, he did fight the war and he won the war also. And he himself killed all these people. But then he had lost his sense of doership while doing it. So, Kamal Kanji, I think you wanted to say something about this. Go ahead, please.
हाँ विक्रम जी, मैं ये बताना चाह रहा हूँ कि अभी जो किसी भाई ने, मैं नाम भूल गया, जो बहुत ही सुंदर प्रश्न पूछा है, ये
समीर,
कि समीर जी ने, कि ये अर्जुन ने कहा कि भाई मैं नहीं लड़ूंगा, और तो कृष्ण जी ने पहले ही चैप्टर में उनको क्यों नहीं सब बता दिया कि अपने घर बैठो, कोई कुछ नहीं है, सब मिथ्या है, माया है, और क्यों 18 दिन लगा दिए और इस काम में। तो उसके मेरे पास दो आंसर हैं। पहला आंसर तो यह है कि अर्जुन उस समय एलकेजी का स्टूडेंट था, उसको एमए पढ़ाना बड़ा मुश्किल था उस समय, तो उसको धीरे 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 एक एक क्लास ऊपर ले गए, एक एक क्लास ऊपर ले गए, एंड व्हेन ही वाज इन ए रिसेप्टिव मोड, तब उसको सही ज्ञान दे दिया और समझ भी गया, उसको तरह तरह से ज्ञान दिया गया। और दूसरा एग्जाम्पल, मैं एक पर्सनल लिविंग एग्जाम्पल देता हूं अपनी लाइफ से, वो ये है कि मेरे पास पेशेंट्स आते हैं तो कभी कभी मैं उनको मिल्क छोड़ने के लिए बोलता हूँ, डिपेंडिंग अपॉन देयर प्रॉब्लम्स, आई से कि आप मिल्क छोड़ दो, बिल्कुल, नॉट अ सिंगल ड्रॉप ऑफ मिल्क शुड एंटर योर सिस्टम। दे बिकम ओवरवेल्म्ड, इतनी बढ़िया चीज छोड़ने को, सारा दुनिया का डॉक्टर कहता है दूध पियो, है सारे इतने आयुर्वेद में गाथा गाई गई है, तो मैं उनको बहुत धीरे धीरे लेके आता हूँ, क्योंकि वो उस समय एलकेजी स्टूडेंट, मैं उनको एकदम मिल्क छोड़ने को नहीं कहता, मैं उनको एलमंड मिल्क बनाना सिखाता हूँ, रेसिपी देता हूँ, बोल के देता हूँ, रिटिन भी देता हूँ उनको, प्रिंटेड शीट देता हूँ कि देखो ऐसा करना, तुम 2 बार दूध पीते ना, मेरे कहने से 1 बार ये पिया करो, 1 बार वो पिया करो, और फिर मुझे बताना नेक्स्ट वीक कि कैसा लगता है तुम्हें। तो नेक्स्ट वीक कहता है तो बहुत अच्छा लगा, कोई डिफरेंस नहीं, बल्कि और भी टेस्टी है, बिना चीनी डाले भी मीठा लगता है। और मैंने कहा कोई बात नहीं, उसमें एक इलायची खजूर और डालिएगा और बढ़िया खजूर शेक लगे। अब उसको लगा कि ठीक है, कोई बुरा नहीं है, फिर मैं धीरे धीरे उसको कहता हूँ तुम यार मॉर्निंग वाला भी छोड़ दो, वो कहता, मैंने कहा 1 हफ्ते के लिए छोड़ना बस, खाली छोड़ देता है। फिर मैं कहता हूँ अच्छा तुम एक काम करो, बस फाइनल लास्ट 1 हफ्ते मेरी एक बात मान लो, जो चाय बनाते हो उसमें यही वाला दूध डालो, इसको बॉयल करके फ्रिज में रख लो, 3-4 दिन खराब नहीं होता। ठीक है, कर लिया। नेक्स्ट वीक आता है, अब 3 हफ्ते मैंने उसके इस तरीके से काउंसलिंग करते करते गुजार दिए। तो मैं पूछता हूँ तुम्हारी तबीयत कैसी है? तबीयत तो बहुत बढ़िया है, अब तुम्हारा पेट में जो ब्लोटिंग होती थी, दर्द होता था, वो सब कैसा? कहते बहुत बढ़िया है। तो मैंने कहा यार फिर यही पीते रहो ना, वो मत पियो, थोड़ा 1 महीने करके देख लो, मेरी बात मान के। देन ही सेज बिल्कुल नहीं पीऊंगा, समझ गया हूं मैं। जैसे अर्जुन कहता मेरी सब नष्ट हो मोह, सारा मेरा मोह नष्ट हो गया, तो दूध से उसका मोह नष्ट हो जाता है। तो ये एक एग्जाम्पल था फ्रॉम द प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ, एंड इट्स ऑलरेडी 9, विक्रम भाई।
fantastic. So thank you, Kamal Kanji, for joining us today, for answering some of the questions, for such a wonderful discussion. I thank all of you for being here. We are already beyond our time, so we are going to close here and we will meet once again in 2 weeks. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night. Those who are in Bharat, have a wonderful day ahead. Those who have joined us in the US. See you again in 2 weeks.